What if the big changes we're seeing in people, in our culture, aren't just cultural? Today, we're diving into a source that makes an absolutely radical claim that a fundamental biological shift is happening within humanity, creating a brand new subspecies right before our very eyes.
Okay, so let's jump right into the core observation that kicks this whole thing off. The source basically asks a simple question. Have you noticed them? Have you noticed this new type of person that seemed to pop up everywhere recently, someone who just feels different from everyone else?
And the source gets super specific about the markers for this group. Physically, it points to things like slender, almost fragile-looking builds, and really distinct, pale, cool-toned complexions. But, the behavioral traits are where it gets really wild. The author talks about a chilling absence of empathy, this kind of casual narcissism, and a sort of performative cruelty that's often passed off as humor, all perfectly tailored for social media.
And here it is, the central thesis. The source is arguing that this isn't just another subculture, not just another passing trend. The main claim, right here, is that we are literally witnessing the emergence of a whole new variety of human being, a subspecies. And maybe the most shocking part, it's one that was supposedly predicted in ancient texts.
So where in the world does an idea this huge come from? Well, let's dig into the foundation of the theory. It all starts with a very controversial rereading of a really famous passage from the book of Genesis.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Most people read this verse and see a metaphor, right? A struggle between good and evil. But this theory takes the word seed completely literally. It proposes that this verse is talking about two distinct, competing family trees, two genealogical lines destined to be in conflict for all of history.
And that literal reading is the basis for what's known as the serpent seed theory. The whole idea is that humanity isn't just one big happy family. Nope. It's actually biologically split into two separate bloodlines, one from Adam and Eve, and this other hybrid line that started with the serpent back in the Garden of Eden.
And the source doesn't just stop in Genesis. It actually pulls from the New Testament to back this up. For example, when Christ tells the Pharisees they are of your father the devil, this theory says he wasn't speaking metaphorically about their bad deeds. No, he was making a literal biological statement about their actual physical ancestry.
Okay, so if this isn't all just a big metaphor, the source has a lot of explaining to do, starting with the biology. How could a serpent gene have actually gotten into the human genome in the first place?
The proposed answer is a scientific concept called transgenics. This is basically the transfer of genetic material between species without any kind of reproduction. The source points to real-world examples, like in marine biology, where certain kinds of fish can literally just absorb raw DNA straight from the water around them, and that DNA can come from a totally unrelated species.
So here's the step-by-step process the author lays out. The theory goes like this. The serpent's venom wasn't poison in the way we think of it. It was a payload of genetic material. Adam and Eve were exposed to it, this material latched onto their own genomes, and their son, Cain, was the first full expression of this new hybrid DNA.
So how did this gene make it through all of history? Well, according to the source, it wasn't wiped out by the Great Flood. The theory suggests the gene was carried onto Noah's Ark by the wives of his sons. After the flood, it became super concentrated in the population of Canaan and his descendants. And the claim is that this bloodline has been running parallel to the rest of humanity all this time, leading to today, where the final split is supposedly happening now.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the modern day. This is where the theory takes a pretty wild turn and claims that social media, specifically TikTok, is playing an unexpected and crucial role in this ancient story.
Now, this is a really important distinction the source makes. It separates your genealogical family tree, your ancestors, from the DNA that you actually express. The argument is that, yeah, we might all go back to a common ancestor like Noah, but what actually defines who you are is the proportion of Adamic versus serpentine DNA that's active in your system. It's all about which genetics are dominant. So then the author lays out this really stark contrast, using the biblical parable of the wheat and the tares as labels for the two groups. And as you can see in the table, the traits are polar opposites. The tares, who represent the serpent seed, are defined by that slender, pale look, narcissistic behavior, and, get this, their ideal environment, their niche, isn't the real world. It's digital spaces, social media.
And here's where modern tech comes crashing into the story. The theory claims that TikTok's algorithm was basically trained on certain beauty standards, like extreme thinness and very pale skin, While it just so happens, the theory argues, that those ideals perfectly match the physical traits, the phenotype, of this serpentine line. So without anyone intending it, the algorithm became a worldwide amplifier for this ancient subspecies. And according to the source, the consequences of this algorithmic promotion have been really fast and really devastating. It argues that this has quickly normalized the whole serpentine look and the behaviors that go with it. And what's the result? A nosedive in empathy, a collapse in attention spans, the rise of the youth mental health crisis, and basically desensitizing the entire world to these traits.
So this all builds to the source's most ominous suggestion. It poses the question you see right here. By normalizing these specific physical and behavioral traits on a global scale, is this whole thing, this technological, cultural shift, is it actually conditioning the world to accept the ultimate prophesied figure of this lineage, the Antichrist himself?
But the author doesn't just leave it there in the realm of prophecy and theology. In a final twist, the source claims this entire massive theory isn't just speculation. It can actually be framed as a scientifically testable hypothesis with real, measurable predictions.
To back that up, the source lays out 4 very specific predictions for future scientists to look into. It predicts that this serpentine group would show measurable physical differences, like in their body temperature or hormones. It says genetic testing would find distinct population groups, and that psych tests would confirm that consistent lack of empathy we talked about earlier.
And that's where we're left. The source's final conclusion isn't a prediction, it's a declaration. This ancient subspecies has finally shown itself. And it leaves us with the full weight of that absolutely extraordinary claim, asking a very simple and maybe a very chilling question. What happens next?